Hello everyone, welcome back for some more Let's Play The Great Ace Attorney. This might be the end of this case? I'm not sure. This case has been really good so far. I'm really enjoying this case. Maybe not every character in the case, but I actually really like what this case is kind of throwing down. So we're going to be, well, meeting up with another witness, it seems. The Knight Errant himself. Oh, have you been watching the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. I have to ask, what on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've met before. Who even is he? Oh, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Would the story of a guy going around killing like every aristocratic person not hit Germany? Or no, his name is literally Professor Hairbrain. What am I saying? Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew that the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies! As it turns out, Lord Van Zieks is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realized, isn't he? Yes, how true. He's his great friend from university in the dock. And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I even imagine the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man. You make it sound deliberate. I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling. Oh yes. In what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Sithe, and Lord Van Zieks. Seems everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes. In fact, I alone am not a member of the set. So that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other. Excuse me. Hi? Who's this? Oh, hi! I feel like you shouldn't come talk to us, Dr. Sithe. Dr. Courtney Sithe née Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me. Uh-oh. To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory, wielding my scalpel. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfectant. Girl, do you know we invented baths? A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Sithe. And I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. Well, Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Wow, okay. Seems like we're gonna need to probably fight. See, this is why I thought it was surprising. But no. You're denying being used now so that you can be saved for the end of the game. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice. I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets. None at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. Damn. She mentioned it too. This Pandora's box. Whatever does it all mean? There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you'd like it or not. Huh? Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits. Maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much there, bucko. Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it, like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. That makes it sound like you are going to be accused of something and we must follow through with it. That's what it sounds like to me. All right, I understand. Thank you. Good. I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth. Sholmes caramel. Why are you giving us the... What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. I have a feeling it's gonna wrap back around to him. It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. The final chapter of the third chapter of the game. 24th of October, 12:40 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. That looks so weird in the middle of the room there.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready.
As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation.
As it seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord.
So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zieks.
My lord.
Are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tusspells?
Not at all. She's in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned.
Very well then, bring in the witness.
At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tusspells to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber's responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Sithe. And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present, it's all we have to go on. Oh. State your name and occupation for the court, please. My name is Madame Esmeralda Tusspells. I am an artwork... I was going to say a artwork waxison. No. I am a waxwork artisan and the proprietress of the Madame Tusspells Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are two. Now there's two of them. Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face? A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. You confirm this? Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped.
The waxwork model kidnapped?
Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim? At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odie Assman. But of course, I know him well. He is part of my odious personages exhibit. Really? Also, odious man. You're using the word odious to describe him. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Assman does not resemble the professor at all. Yeah, but perhaps the faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we should see now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock. This is absurd. Pardon? I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask, but clearly it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed. The man's identity was never made public, after all.
The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There's no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information. Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Tusspells principles. What principles? The family Tusspells has always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voilà, our principles. There's a well-known legend about the Tusspells waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. Oh, is there? Is there now? A member of the Tusspells family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death. Actually, at the guillotines. Okay, hold up. Is this real? Madame Tussauds Queen Guillotine. Okay. Well, apparently the actual guillotine blade on display at Madame Tussauds is the blade that beheaded Marie Antoinette, purchased from the executioner's family. Oh, from Sanson, I'm assuming. Charles Henry Sanson. Believed to be. Okay, wait, believed to be? Okay, right, that is a right? So Madame Tussauds uses beheaded politicians to create her original waxworks. In the late 18th century, wax artist Marie Tussaud launched a somewhat unusual career in Paris. As a foreshore of her loyalty to the French Revolution, she was ordered to create death masks of the guillotined aristocrats of the former monarchy. Oh, so she did basically do this. Wow. God. We can only hope one day. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there, but you can imagine where I'd finish that sentence. Anyways, you are correct. The model on display, the model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. We Tusspells will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it's been my family's secret for generations.
Do you mean to say that beneath that mask?
Oui, the true visage of the killer is there.
This is ludicrous. It's out of the question.
The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tusspells special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave. It is a sight to behold. You should come.
But I think, madam, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter and to stop advertising your place of work, because I feel like that's not allowed in court, but I don't know about that. You'll explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation.
With pleasure. It's nice to have someone who is a down-to-earth voice after a lot of yelling, you know? The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse. In accordance with Tusspells' family principles, I enlisted the aid of the grave digger. Ooh. Okay, and who's that? And created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was worried that I could be discovered.
Okay. But who's this gravedigger?
The gravedigger? The man sanctioned this? But I thought he was racing Bigfoot that day at Monster Jam.
Sorry. Oh my god. I went to go see Monster Jam live. That was so fun.
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew. Only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, huh?
So you truly saw it. The face of that monster?
Naturally, actually naturellement, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But Tusspells would not be Tusspells if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madam. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here newspaper from the time.
Interesting. I'm curious about the numbers in the back, of course. Right? I'm also going to read some of these after.
The special exhibit was based on the picture in the article. It was a most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitness who saw it.
Oh my god, people told me it was Marie Antoinette syndrome to get white hair. We wrap this back around to Marie Antoinette. Oh my god. I want to read some of those there. Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words. Okay, what do we got here? Man rises from his grave. Persecuted criminal returns to the dead of night local cemetery at Lowgate Cemetery, just beneath... I guess we can do this. Oh, that's way too much. Just behind the prison, on that night of that foul demon's execution, the newly interred professor forced off his grave cover as he clawed free of the earth. The young man who witnessed the scene was on the verge of raising a shriek when, in the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breathing then stilled once more. That seems important for us to not address, you know? The youth then finally released a scream he had been holding and ran for his life. The university student experienced this shocking event as Mr. Enoch Drebber. Wow, it says it right there. I wonder if we're going to bring that up. and a resident of its student dorms. Mad sheep rampage. Unexplained phenomenon grips Oxfordshire. There's not a place called Oxfordshire. Shut up. That's not real. That's such a British sort of... Oxfordshire. West Oxfordshire. Locals reported a most remarkable circumstance in which folded sheep were seized with a sudden fright and leapt from their pens. Okay. Charles Darwin to receive Copley Medal. So here's recipient of the Royal Society's most prodigious awards, Mr. Charles Darwin. Cool, right? The Great Stink. Oh my god, the Great Stink. Right? That was about the time when randomly the river in London just became extremely stinky. After a great many years, Parliament has long last resolved to relieve the citizens of the horrifying stench that carries on the lightest breeze, lingers in the nostrils of men and women and children. Yep. Was the ball mask to blame for the great blaze? I forgot. Oh, the London fire, right. The fire that engulfed the popular theatre continues to draw attention as reports, maybe not that one, reports that Her Majesty Queen Victoria herself visited the Royal Italian Opera to inspect the site. Now for words of condolence to the theatre's owner, Mr. Frederick Guy. The theater had been under lease to famed magician John Henry Anderson, and there was some speculation that the blame for the fire squarely with him for his insistence on holding the ball mask there. Could his magical tricks have played a trick on him, costing him the city a great center for the arts? All the other stuff doesn't even seem like references to Ace Attorney. They feel like real things that were happening at the time, which is kind of cool. Wait, what's the bottom one there? Oh, Krakatoa erupts, just casually, you know, as you do. The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I've reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? That is correct. The professor you see before you here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination.
This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Sithe. There has to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Sithe and Drebber were in on this crime together. Let's see here. What else can we bring up and talk about? So, first off, some pressing. Special exhibit in the House of Horrors based on a rumor that shocked society in London. And that rumor would be a 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
All right, I know just what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else.
Yes, that story will never disappear.
The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the central attraction of my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. Oh, whoa, like a cutscene. Whoa, proper cutscene. It was in Lowgate Cemetery behind the prison in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. It's okay, so this is one day after. The interred professor slid back the stone slab covering his tomb and emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him. But an instant later... Okay, no, this is actually... Okay, this is where it's being told to us, the story that was on the side there. An instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life. And that witness's name? Albert Einstein. The corpse climbed out of his own grave? And then somebody shot him. Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor. Perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why it was in every newspaper across the capital.
But was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it?
Oui, the special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Madame, might I say something? Please go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often rumors contain elements of the truth. Ah, I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people from Europe. Yes, we're all human. Can you not be racist? Please, I was hoping you'd be the one. Anyways, can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It is not possible for the dead to come back to life. But they can inhabit the body of a 16 or 9-year-old girl and make them grow big boobies, which is very awkward, and I don't know how to feel about that. And yeah, it's a little bit strange, but they cannot come back to life. Sorry? 10 years ago, I was there in Nogate Cemetery after the criminal known as the Professor was killed by hanging. I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead. I see.
It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate.
That was a really good press. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Tusspells' family principles. Is that true of every waxwork in your museum, then? It is. Assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know. What sort of letters? When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Comme ça. No, I won't come, even if you call me sir. My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a symbol of status even. Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax. And it is thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of these special exhibits, of course, the Professor. Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse. There are no exceptions to the principles of Tusspells. I initiated the gravedigger and created a mold for the head. Okay, so yeah, who's this gravedigger? I think we need to know who he is. Surely that's illegal, isn't it? It would seem the proprietress of this repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed. It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him, to record this history. It is the raison d'etre of the Tusspells Museum. But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity. I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the Professor.
Do you realize what you're saying? The Professor's identity is a national secret.
I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close.
Of course it will. As will your entire museum if you don't tread carefully, madam.
That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you? So 10 years ago, on the night of the professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse. Oui, exactement. I hid myself until he gave me the signal. I was there for a very long time that night.
Hold it!
Okay. You were there longer than you expected to be? I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly as I removed the mask. Oh, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin. Dare I ask? The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently, his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night, I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time. What do you mean? When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death. Why 3 hours? Is the amount of time significant? It is because of rigor mortis. Oh, wriggling mortis? Okay, I'm gonna be... Okay, well... No, I'm calling this here... Buddy, if you're studying law, you should know what rigor mortis is. It's the name given to a phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. Well, that was an education, if slightly scary one. As the mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw. I see. So that's why you wait. For that time when the mouth falls open, before that time the mouth falls open, it is very difficult to do my work. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. Buddy, you're a lawyer. What about that information? That's significant, yeah. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including it in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see. Of course. I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave. This is no time for jokes, Mrs. Sato. Jesus Christ, read the room. Oh my god.
Madam, kindly amend your testimony as discussed.
Bien, sir. Okay, we're going to leave that for now, because it was before the onset of rigor mortis, and as dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered. We'll do this one first. You say that dawn was approaching? What was the time of day then, approximately? Well, I could not say. When I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible. The execution took place on the 17th of June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year.
Indeed it did. First light would have been at around 4:40 in the morning.
That's the death numbers. That really is early. The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in a half hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If someone had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe. So I had to hurry. Oh, that's faster. Yeah, is there me just Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too?
You certainly appear to be good extraordinary lengths for your work, madam.
I wonder, is what she just said particularly significant? Sure. Can we also amend this? Those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture and the early sunrise, could you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be significant. Of course, if you would like me to. You're quite right, Mr. Naruhodo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it? That's not quite what I meant by significant.
Kindly amend your formal testimony then, madam.
With pleasure, my lord. So is it... Oh, it replaces them there. Yeah, good. I hurried to finish my work in the half hour before sunrise. Then I left as soon as the corpse was interred. So it took me a long time before rigor mortis set in. Do we have anything for this? I don't think so. My only thought is... confirmed at midnight. So he was killed at midnight. 3 hours. Feel like the timing is a bit weird. I'm bad with numbers though, so I'm already failing, you know? So, rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it starts at the jaw about 3 hours post-death, is that right? Oui, c'est ça. Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season. I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject. No, that is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine. In fact, it's actually quite scary that you don't know this. Well, I had no idea about it, but maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science. Buddy, you did to the court. We all heard it. I can ask Father to give you a very simple primer if you like. I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them. Oh dear, I'll do my very best. And then this one, half hour before sunrise.
Hold it!
Okay, let's see here. Do you have a reason to believe you might be discovered once the sun came up or something? I paid the gravedigger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his patrol of the area. Can you just pay off the warden too, then? I'd already paid the gravedigger. As I said, you cannot buy the silence of everyone. Or the secret. It's no longer a secret, huh? The sunrise was at 4:40 a.m. that day, which means it would have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work. Oui, that must be correct. That would be when the gravedigger gave me the signal to come out of hiding. So that's all I have to go on. What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo? For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the professor is the only thing we know of that links the pair of them. So I feel sure that waxwork must be a clue to this mystery somehow. In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their leanings and the trial will be over. I agree, but interestingly, uncovering what the professor has to do with all this means more to Lord Van Zieks than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting anyway. Yes, as do I. After all, he has a profound connection to the professor as well. So let me think here. So we got, it's going to be this one long. It took me a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis. So let's just think here. It was before the onset of rigor mortis. I think it might have to do with the time or this one. Half hour before sunrise. Let's see here. This has nothing to do with it. No, that's new stuff. New stuff. Half hour before sunrise. This happens the day after, so that's unrelated for now. Right? Death by hanging confirmed midnight, June 17th. I don't think there's anything to do with this. No. The waxwork. There's the blood on the inside. We couldn't actually open it up. Right, like we open it but there's nothing in here with like a date or anything. So no, this has nothing to do with this. We really only have just like this evidence here. Resurrected on the night of his execution. On the night of his execution. Right? So, the young man who witnessed was on the verge of raising a shriek. Wait. Yeah. Wait. No. Wait. The night. It's this, right? this doesn't make any sense. Let's see here. Is it just like you say?
Objection.
No. Defense would have to object to that, and she's like, nope. Because, let's see here. Or, is it this one? Took me a very long time because of rigor mortis.
Objection.
No. Okay. Now my thinking's not right then. Oh, because if it happened at midnight, then the night of it is 24 hours, right? Okay. Hurried to finish it before sunrise. Took me the time before rigor mortis set in. Well, okay. You said 3... Didn't mean to... Okay. That's on me. You said it takes 3 hours. So if it happened at midnight, then how come you had to wait till 4 and not 1? Can we do that?
Objection.
Yes, we can. Madame Tusspells, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And is that a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. Quoi? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tusspells was crafting her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madam? You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for long. But on the other hand, you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June. No. The professor indeed died at midnight that day, and by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would have already set in. Oui. Yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. Impossible.
Order, order! Counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of the staff at Barclay Union Prison where the execution took place. By heck.
Extraordinary.
Not in my day.
My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? The professor died that night, without question. He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. There was no... Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die at... Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case? It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link. Is it going to be that the shooting happened before? Because the whole thing about, oh, he ran and then told the story, that could have happened the day before. Between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night.
Counsel, present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened on the night the professor...
Is this right? Saying that he witnessed the resurrection on the night, right? Right? Am I doing this? Am I smart man? Let's see.
Take that.
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Yes. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery. You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now? Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection!
Don't be a fool. Simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of that? Are you serious? The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word! Yes, indeed!
Mais oui, it's a young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night. Why was he there, though? Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up.
But in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There'll surely be no hope of finding him.
It literally says his name right there. On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well. What?
Are you suggesting, counsel, that you identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place?
Yes, my lord, his name is right in the newspaper. You can literally read it right there. In fact, you could say he's right here before my very eyes. In fact, literally take a look. It's right there. I wonder if that's not being brought up because that was flavor text added by the localization. I wonder if in the Japanese version you could... Well, that might also be there in English in the Japanese version, and you just can't read it.
We will substantiate your latest claim now, then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of this staggering scene from this cemetery?
I thought I was going to make us point it out. That's right. It's Drebber.
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber.
The previous witness.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tusspells' Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling on to the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber. Oh, he has a little cross, which is a nice kind of reference to the fact that apparently Enoch Drebber was Mormon. Wow, okay, that's a very subtle reference.
Order, order, order! Surely not, counsel.
Miss Drebber. Was there... I want to say Mr., but no, he's not being respectful. In Lowgate Cemetery. What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course. Madame Tusspells doesn't know, does she? But then how did she get his face then? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No! But that would mean... Madame Tusspells. It would appear you know the name. Enoch Drebber. Oui. Yes, I knew it. But from long ago in the past. What? Oh my.
Good gracious! How far back we going?
Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know. Yes. Yes, of course. Really? The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity, his name was never revealed. Oh, I think that was a mistake then, putting that there. That is apart from... Oh! Well, here we go. Apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I've already shown in court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
Goodness me. Yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Oh my god, so it is there, and he just didn't read.
But disciple.
Disciple? Okay.
A disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms.
Unbelievable. It's right there. If only we could read English.
When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my house of horrors, whether it was truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet with Mr. Drebber in order to discover the waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork, and since that time it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery.
Do we have to do the quiet white fades for this? Is this a moment worthy of that? Usually we save that for crazy moments, but I mean, it's not that crazy, all things considered, aside from, I guess it did link up all the cases. So 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed, a criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote and was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork of the model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing. That's conjecture. It's just, him screaming across the aisle. Even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Assman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Sithe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Sithe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. That misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect, which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Ugh. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Sithe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Sithe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us so herself, didn't she? That was 50 minutes ago. We don't need this. We don't need this flashback, but I guess reinforcing that this comes from Strongheart is a pretty big thing. Immediately, I knew he'd be the final villain. It just felt like it. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zeeks. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Van Zeeks, the missive was issued from Lord Chief Justice's office.
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes! Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Sithe both take the stand together.
Make sure you all come to Madame Tusspells, by the way.
And she's just up there, again, advertising.
Order, very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena for immediate effect addressed to Dr. Sithe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders.
All right then. Enoch Drebber and Dr. Sithe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. Just a stone's throw away, I can feel it. The truth behind all this is about to come out. Yeah, probably not a long subpoena. She was just here, right? Also, Madame Tusspells still up here. Okay. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Sithe. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zieks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office. Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I love that word. That's a good word. Thank you for using one of my favorite words. I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Sithe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Sithe's. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery. So he was a student who saw it. You can see the resemblance, actually, can't you? With the man in Madame Tusspells, I mean.
Surely he's not gonna claim that's what he really saw, especially not after all these years.
He was a research student at the University of London, wasn't he? And a bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me. Coo. What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters. And in a court of law, too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank. I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth. That is the most blatant, look. Wow. I just realized he's extremely asymmetrical. He has pluses on one side and minuses on other. Wow.
So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
See? Yes, of course. As you wish. Okay. The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realize that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article.
Huh. Okay.
Wait a minute, you're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course. You'd have to have a screw loose if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead.
But you're saying this article is...
Not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes.
Ugh.
The details in the article aren't true.
It nullifies the argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Sithe would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument?
Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. Well, at least it wasn't the other thing you do with corpses. You know, that thing. Can you imagine if he just blatantly said to the court, like, yes, I was going there to lay some dirty pipe, if you understand. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear, oh no, of Barclay Prison. Why did that have to be read? So among the students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead. So you were one of the so-called resurrectionists. A particularly unpleasant scourge on society. The what? What the frick? What is a resurrectionist? Is that real? Resurrectionist, one who practices body snatching. Resurrectionists in the United Kingdom. Whoa. Resurrectionists were body snatchers who were commonly employed by anatomists in the United Kingdom during the 18th and 19th centuries to exhume the bodies of the recently dead. Between 1506 and 1752, only a few cadavers were available each year for anatomical research. The supply was increased after the death penalty. Parliament passed the Murder Act by allowing the judges to substitute the public displays of executed criminals with the dissection, a fate generally viewed with horror. What the frick? What the frick is going on in London? God, you guys are crazy. And you used resurrectionists for this? What an amazing term. The term resurrectionist is so crazy powerful, and you used it just for people who like immediately dug up. Oh my god, there's resurrectionist gangs. 7 gangs of resurrectionists. Shut up, this sounds so crazy. And it's just used for stealing bodies? Jerry Cruncher, a resurrectionist found in Charles Dickens' novel A Tale of Two Cities. That's crazy. I've never heard of this. Actually, my fellows and I went by another name. The Repurposers. Oh, shut up.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it to print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. I see. Out of interest, Who drew the illustration for this article? Yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. What was his name? I swear if it's him. I swear if it's the guy from before. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done, claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish. Very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed with the cross-examination now.
That was a while. I forgot about we were doing that. At once, my lord. Okay, let's break this down here. So, the reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Surely you need only look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that. The lantern and the spade. Oh yeah, that would be it, huh? But who on earth would want to buy a dead body? Any major hospital? A hospital? In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means. As aspiring scientists, we, young research students, had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with a hospital via some of our medical students' acquaintance. We would never take anything of value from the graves. This was all for the furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand. You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences. Oh, so when he makes a joke, it's fine. We students were caught between the hammer and anvil. We needed funds for research. Professor Harebrained said exactly the same.
I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity of which you revealed this abhorrent behavior.
Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day. Yes, the illustration in the newspaper was based on what I witnessed that night, okay? Wait. He was wearing a mask? That can't be right. Okay. The strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny. Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police at the time, you know. I was shaking like a leaf, but they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself. So you went to the papers instead? I started big with the London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from the Gossip, Rags, the gutter press that came to get my story, and it spread like the plague throughout the capital as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale. The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets. I don't even know what a broadsheet is. And yet, only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories. What about the article in the Daily Circus? That particular journalist found me at my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. I love that movie. So I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night. And from your description, he drew this illustration? Precisely. That's how I learned the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea. Myself, you see. Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate then? Well? Thinking back now, I realize that I never actually saw the professor at all, though. Okay, this might be where the not seeing the mask comes in. What are you talking about? I think I explained already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So is renowned among us students for being haunted by the ghosts of... Yeah, we've done this. You're literally repeating the same words. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. And as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life. But you said you actually saw it. I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night. I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor? Have anything at all, Mr. Naruhodo? I know, I need to present it against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his. The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Okay. The young woman being Madame Tusspells, of course. Precisely. I must say, I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later. As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article in Comme ça, I found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said. I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me. You readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display. I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded. Ah, oui, I remember now. I purchased something from you that day, n'est-ce pas? Did you? I can't say I remember. What was it, madam? His camera. That was the real camera! Oh, yes. I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into any cemetery.
You took a camera with you, sir? To what end?
To record the details of the body I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it.
I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It is part of the special exhibit in my house of horrors. I am very meticulous about such details. It is a Tusspells way. It would seem then that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to Lowgate Cemetery on the night in question. Yeah, interesting. Details updated. Okay. We still have the dark stain on there, yep. There was blood on it. There was blood on it. Never actually saw the professor? We'll see. We'll see about that, buddy. This article, you mean? Published in the Daily Circus? Yes. Someone informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article. Well, what a snitch. And carelessly let slip that night after night. I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, you might say. I mean, at least he wasn't doing a weed. The university's reputation was execrably? Execrably? That's not a word. Defiled. And I was expelled as a result. Mon Dieu, I had no idea. And having been run out of the university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade. You combine your knowledge of science with the knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology, and use those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Boy, he knows when to stay silent. Professor Albert Harebrain was just your latest victim, wasn't he? Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort. What? Why are you just staying there in silence? What's Drebber up to? Why did he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim? I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now. What circumstances? Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago, it will expose a secret in Dr. Scythe's path that she would desperately want to hide. Yeah, of course. Drebber and Dr. Scythe are working together now, and if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. I have to prove he really did see it. Prove he did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead as he originally claimed. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly. Yeah, look, if the camera were to have gone open, the bellows were to have opened, the only reason it would open... The only way it would open is if he went to take the picture of the corpse, right? And get the blood on it, right? That's what I'm thinking. So, I'm just going to, first off, we'll go to the camera. We're just going to... Okay, so yeah, it's coming off as... Alright, there's... Oh, no, wait, is this new? It's where the prototype plate goes. It'd be incredible to think this is the actual camera Mr. Drebber used that night? Yeah. I certainly never imagined a piece of evidence would be on display in Madame Tusspells. She's very keen on everything being as true to life as possible, though, isn't she? Okay. And then... What a wonderful machine. Really love contraptions. Yeah. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. What is it on the belt? Okay, yeah, this... Okay, so that blood is very important. But the blood bleeding there shows it opened up and... Objection. Nope. Really? Really? Okay. Okay. Never actually saw the professor. But then, is it going to be first off, is it showing the diagram to be like, hey, then how come it shows you seeing the professor? Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's just the contradiction there, yeah. I jumped the gun. Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago. Oh dear, we seem to be at odds. But I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based on what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb. Odie Assman was the journalist? Wait.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. I didn't even notice that down there. A figure emerging from a tomb wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago. It was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. Okay, but I was wearing that. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial.
Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously the provision of this mask was not public knowledge.
So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard, A lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. Okay, this wasn't where I was going with this at all. Unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Order, order. Well, Mr. Drebber.
It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken. You're still saying you didn't see it? If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course. Of course. Only happy to oblige. Can't believe he's still not going to concede the point. What I in fact witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work. Oh, you mean a grave robber with the Okay, I feel like Madame Tusspells is going to be like, "No, that was you." A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about? Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see. You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself? Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity, wouldn't you say? But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second a gunshot rang out, which suddenly from behind, the bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more.
We might assume that the sexton...
The what? What the... Ain't that a thing you use to tell the stars in the boat? What the frick is a sexton? Other than what I have a lot of! A person who looks after a church and churchyard, sometimes acting as bell ringer and formerly as a gravedigger. Oh, an officer of the church who's all about associating the graveyard. I see. It's also what I have a lot of!
We might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon them.
Your gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery. I think it might have been rather big news, my lord.
Oh, yes, well.
I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the reporter. I heard her, oh, strange there. She has the accent. That's very good. That's very good.
Excuse me.
Madame Tusspells. Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. Oh la la. Pardon. I was lost in my thoughts. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madam, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshot. Stop. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. But what about a French one? Please, Madame Tusspells, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. No, you were very explicit about the details, about the masks that the figure was wearing, and the blood that splattered over you when he was shot. Enough. Shut up, woman. You're making all of this up.
That will do! Mr. Drebber,
Yes.
you refute the account that was just given by Madame Tusspells.
I have no recollection of ever saying those things. Come on! Do you really expect us to believe?
Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom.
Right.
Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness.
Very well. Zeke's is like shaking. He's like, we're doing this. There was no gunshot from behind me, nor any splattering of blood. Well, you had to say the second part, buddy. You're gonna get owned. Yet Madame Tusspells has testified that you told her about both those details. Not true. I said nothing of the sort. 10 years have passed. Without material evidence to the contrary, you have no grounds on which to question the witness's word. Tell me, Madame Tusspells. Oui? What exactly did Mr. Drebber say about the blood that apparently splattered on him? Alors, this is what he told me. All of a sudden, he heard a very loud gunshot from behind his back. Can I be honest? The fact she remembers this 10 years later is insane. You think I can remember a conversation I had 10 years ago? Oh my god, no. The bullet hit the figure who was emerging from the tomb in the middle of the chest. In his art.
In his art? Hopefully it wasn't in the painting. Anyways, one dreadful sight after another.
And since Monsieur Drebber was at the time facing towards the condemned man, the blood sprayed from the wound and splattered on his body. That is what he told me. So, not an experience you would ever forget, is it? Precisely. And I didn't forget it. Because as I've already said, it never happened in the first place. He's clearly lying. Only had some evidence to prove it. We can't let him win, Mr. Naruhodo. So we mustn't overlook a single detail no matter how small or big and bloodstain shaped. Anyways, I think it's about time for you to get owned, buddy. Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera? Uh-oh. But that is the camera from the fateful night. Yes, we, borrowed it from the House of Horrors. I don't think that's legal. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And is that supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed the lens extends forwards on the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
What's that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain. That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact.
Good lord, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Sithe? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood and not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether it's blood at all is simple enough. I propose that Madame Tusspells' testimony was correct. That on the night in question 10 years ago, you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound. Well, and that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb.
Ah!
There's simply no way that you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact you saw the professor that night. But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. Or whose, then? Who could benefit? Mr. Drebber's obviously lying in order to protect somebody.
My goodness, he's shielding someone.
I'm not looking at her. I'm not looking at her. Yes, my lord, and clearly. It's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed.
Well, Counsel, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect by lying about what he saw that night?
The one who should have killed him. The obvious answer is Dr. Sithe. Sithe.
Whatever do you mean?
Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor...
That would be an unprecedented scandal.
This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened. Yes, that's exactly what it would mean. Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape. Not in Great Britain. Yeah, but what if he was just built different? Also, the fact that there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging.
If that were really true, Counsel, the implication of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would take the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up.
And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Sithe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime.
You mean?
I mean that Dr. Sithe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Osman with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. Oh, he's cunty now. Lord Van Zeeks. Pray forgive my cuntiness, my freshly filled hollow chalice, and a whole raft of other discourtesies now.
Goodness me!
Just the sort of tall-tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing. What's that? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night only to be shot in the chest, that would explain the time immediately. Who pulled the trigger and disposed of him forever? Well, I have no idea at the moment. We have too little information to work that out at the present, I think. I couldn't agree more. Does that matter? The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. Have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend? Considered what? Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary.
Quite. I want to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it.
To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness.
Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture and would be instrumental in future profits too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asman at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim, no?
There is this contract, that's very true.
The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it. Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme, especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. The research grant was the aim. Taking Mr. Aspen's life would have made no sense anyway, which means Mr. Drebber's motive was revenge for getting his face in the newspaper and ruining his time. That's literally what it is. That's literally what it is. I just put it together. I didn't even put together why Odiasman was the guy in the newspaper. Like, I didn't even put together that him being the newspaper guy was a big deal until now. That just makes sense. Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asman. But why? What was his motive then? It's right there, buddy. I see it. Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? Oh my god, the dodge, the spot dodge. How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country?
At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence.
All right. Who exactly was Mr. Asman to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet except me, because I'm gamer. I'm gonna have to present 2 pieces of evidence to show what that is. Have we ever had to present 2 pieces of evidence? This is crazy. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the criminal dead is right here. Okay, so I'm gonna say newspaper and the thing, right? Newspaper and the contract. So first off, newspaper. It's newspaper article, my lord. That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? That drivel should never have been written. Is typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing. Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Aspen dead. What other evidence?
Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence, which when cross-referenced with the newspaper article, establishes a motive for the deed.
Bam.
It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Asman. I knew those signatures would be important. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. What? There's something very significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common.
Really?
And it's that common link. That shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odiasman. It seems that offense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these 2 pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between the newspaper article and the contract?
I think it's right here.
What these 2 pieces of evidence have in common is a signature.
A signature?
The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person.
What?
A As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Assman's signature at the bottom.
Let me see now. Good Lord, yes, they're identical.
In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Assman. Oh, yo, he fall. Nice.
Objection!
That's progress. But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Mr. Assman? Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would have provided retribution.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. That was him doing it, recounting it. At the time, you were a student of the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life.
So Mr. Assman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he?
He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Assman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows, and all because of that article written by Mr. Assman. Enough. Yo, he's still got his schmoofs? You can't take his groove. Stop this endless drivel about my life. What?
Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber.
Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research, but they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some other wretch or other, after all.
Good gracious.
Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench. Being forced out of university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me. Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? And I have evidence to prove it. How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Fine. If you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave the university because I like talent? Could it be this thing that we got that we never found a use for? Oh, the Royal Society Award? The thing that's like super duper really good? Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop. Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science?
What exactly is this trophy, Counsel?
It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord. There's no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future.
Oh, good gracious.
Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Assman was, when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life. It's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man. Oh? The truth is... Scythe's gonna interrupt. Finally, he's going to fold. Oh? Who's yelling hold it here? Is it Scythe? Her not getting a voice would be weird. Oh yeah. You don't have a voice? Are you serious? Fine. Clearly this has run its course now. What? I admit it. All of it. What? What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he'd keep my dirty secret from 10 years ago. No. Oh, Lord! Dr. Scythe, do you realize what you're saying, woman? Oh, so much for be good to women. It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. The memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Scythe, you will go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night 10 years ago. All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There really was no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now. Or rather, I can only apologize now. An emphasis. See, this is where the silent fades is worth it. Why on earth would you buckle now? Well, there's no point in trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Bitch. Your accomplices admitted everything. Surely it goes without saying. You admit your part in it too, then? Oh my god. I admit nothing at all. Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Again, the one that you said I will blow it up. Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no way you can prove I did anything wrong. No! We literally had Gregson there to hear about the bomb. Order! Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zeeks. Yes. I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course.
I have heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper form in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain.
Very true. It had slipped my mind. We have not seen him in so long, I completely forgot about him. Isn't he one of your closest friends? Oh, right, that's even worse.
As the court has heard, Dr. Sithe has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt.
You mean...
At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection?
None, my lord. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Harebrain's innocence.
Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss.
Oh my god, are we gonna push harder? I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Sithe suddenly admit to it like that? Is everything alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. Is that really what we want? What the defense should be pushing for now is... This is interesting. What? I just want to see what happens if we just say, yeah, it's over, whatever. We're good. What if we're just like, yeah, no, we're good. It's over. The judge gives his verdict now. Professor Harebrain will be found not guilty without any doubt. Something troubling you, perhaps? Yes, but it's probably nothing. In the antechamber during the recess earlier, I did give Mr. Sholmes my word, though, didn't I? Oh, it's going to make us, right? I told him I'd pursue any doubts I had about the truth to the absolute last. If you gave Mr. Sholmes your word, then it most certainly isn't nothing. And it means there's only one right answer here. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why I was ever wavering.
Objection!
He didn't even point. The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord.
I beg your pardon?
We demand one final testimony.
What? You do realize I'm about to adjudicate in favor of your client, I presume?
What are you playing at now, my infamous friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking? The thing you told me to do? The truth. The whole truth, and a way to bring it all out into the open. Right. I have no idea where we're going actually right now. Yes, in hindsight, what are we going to bring up? Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. Okay. I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced that this would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client and to secure an acquittal. Obviously. But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court to pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Sithe. Testimony from me? About what? About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed, so stop wasting everyone's time. As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination. He's on our side? Nice. Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped. That's what you call it?
What is your objection, Lord Van Zieks?
The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness. Yeah, the double team. Don't be stupid. If there is more to this case than has yet to come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end. You'll what? Lord Van Zieks.
This is the most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Sithe, you will testify for the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber.
Very well. Okay. Let's see here. It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork in the note tucked inside its jacket, and the actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. I enlisted the help of the entire forensic investigation team to dress the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it. So you told a bunch of people on the team? Uh-oh. So I was right. The stage and machine were all specially designed for the deception. So it seems, and all meticulously prepared. You did well to see through it. You're a very shrewd boy. If a mommy told me that, I'd be immediately over. So kind of you to say. And what about this autopsy report then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower instead of under the stage. That's all? That's a terrible corruption. Only my team were aware of the deceit, and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you.
We must be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe that testimony's clarified everything. There's no particular need for a cross-examination, I would say.
No, I disagree. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Just look at that expression on Dr. Sithe's face. It's the defense's right to cross-examine any witness following testimony. What is it about you Japanese that makes you all so doggedly persistent? Something samurai, blah blah blah.
Very well, if you desire, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord, they said this is the last one. They said it, so let's do this. It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork and the note tucked inside the jacket. From what you described before, it sounded like the note was anonymous. Did you have any idea of who was behind it? There are very few people in the know about what really happened 10 years ago to start with. At any rate, I'd never heard of this engineer, so no, I had no idea. Yet despite not knowing who was behind the plan, you went along with it? I had no choice. Protecting the professor's secret was my only concern. But the horse has bolted now, and the stable door will never shut again. Scotland Yard's reputation will be immeasurably damaged as a result of all of this. Yes, thank you, Lord Van Zieks. I'm well aware of that.
As I understand it, what you found in the birdcage was the waxwork model. Where then was the victim's body?
So Madame Tusspells just left? Okay. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage.
Hold it!
So you knew about the special construction of the stage used to carry out the trick then? It was quite obvious what had happened when the victim in the waxwork. And you switched the two over, didn't you? In other words, you recorded the victim's body as having been discovered in the Crystal Tower. In the waxwork, I wrapped it and sent it by carriage to the specified address at the specified time. Why are you giving such directions? presumably so it could be recovered by Drebber and returned to Madame Tusspells. I see. Then you put the birdcage back on the experimentation stage? Yes, although someone obviously made a mistake about which cage should go where. I thought I'd made it perfectly clear to the team, but still. Suppose you were focused on the victim's body, that being a more important detail. My thought is, this one, the bottom of the actual victim was beneath the stage. I'll have to see. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job, okay? When you say arranged, I presume you mean with this? Yes, the instructions in the engineer's notes said something along the lines of, fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Hairbrain alone could have killed Aspen. So you mean that was your doing? I fetched Hairbrain's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage, took it with me, alone, to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen.
Alone, Doctor?
I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception. There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in the dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then, I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the man's chest. And then you noted that in your fake autopsy report? As a fictitious cause of death? Exactly. So, the actual cause of death was the trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop.
My word.
That's a rough way to go. What is it, Mr. Sato? Something about Dr. Scythe's last statement is playing on my mind, that's all. Yes, mine too. Dr. Scythe. There's really no need to shout. I can hear you perfectly well. The defense calls for you to add what you just said to your formal testimony. Oh, which part? What I wanted to supplement her testimony with is the stab or... I want the stab or the thing. Stab in the heart, sure. Right, shows a stab wound. Distinctive markings, so that's his blood, yeah. Autopsy. Neck was broken from the impact and stabbed in the chest. Birdcage. Busted at the bottom. I think there's something with this still. Right? The rubber, the crossbow, the diagram. Shows a stab wound to the chest. There's the glass there, right? Let's go with the real cause of death. Real cause of death being the fall from 30 feet, that part. Fine, if that's what you want. Stop yelling, please. Prosecution concurs.
Very well, we'll supplement your testimony now with this.
If you wish, my lord. Could also be the stab, we'll see. Natural cause of death was the neck trauma Osman suffered from the 30-foot fall. I set up with the entire team. We'll go back to that after. The entire team in perverting the course of justice. My team consists of the very best investigators there are. I demand loyalty from all members. We operate on a code of chivalry of sorts. You aid and abet a murderer, commit perjury, and dare talk of chivalry? It was a matter of priorities. What? Nothing was more important than protecting the secret of the professor. My team did what was necessary without losing sight of the primary goal. I consider their conduct exemplary. Ugh. Don't concede the point, Mr. Naruhodo. You mustn't let her win. I need a lawyer. I'll take that silence as tacit acceptance. Now can we move on? The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it. But at what cost? Faith in Scotland Yard's going to suffer a terrible blow as a result of this, and I'm going to be the one to blame. And your precious secret is out now anyway. Yes, as you say. And I take full responsibility.
Blow me down, Dr. Sithe.
Surely there was some other way you could have protected the secret. No, there really wasn't. I've done my utmost, believe me. In many ways, I respect your determination. Oh, I nearly froze under that cold stare she said that. I do believe she was being genuine, though, Mr. Naruhodo. So that's her story. She's admitted everything and revealed her full involvement in the crime. I do wonder if there really could be much more to it. Well, I don't know, but I just have a feeling. Do you, Mr. Naruhodo? Truth is, I find it strange, too. How those two are reacting to this in completely opposite ways, I mean. Yeah, exactly. For some reason, I feel sure they're still trying to hide something. Probably the stab we gotta do, actually. Start with this. You're quite sure of that? It was a result of a broken neck. Oh, is it gonna be the feet? Yes, as a professional, that was more than apparent. You'd never know just by looking at the photograph of the victim, though, would you? No, that's very true. Obviously not. Which is precisely why coroners are needed to determine the actual facts. Yes, assuming they can be trusted. There's no point calling her assessment into question without evidence. Let's get back to the testimony. Very well. Okay, so, like, is it that the... was neck trauma, but, like, crashed down, damage to the base, right? It's this one, right? Right?
Objection!
Shoot. The defense objects.
No, you stinky. Stinky boy, stinky boy.
Okay, fine, whatever.
Glad to hear you're gonna take a damn shower, you stinky boy.
Okay. The actual cause of death was neck trauma. Neck trauma. I see no trauma. No trauma whatsoever. He's nicely in there. Right? So that's... It's a weird piece of evidence. Neck trauma, huh? How do we go back to neck trauma? Is it this one?
Objection!
Nope. Okay. That last statement is not correct.
Yo, shut your butt up, buddy.
Okay. Nope. Okay, that's fine. Whole exchange has been extremely jarring. Yes, haha, jar puns. Okay. Well, let's maybe try the other one. It made it sound like that was the right one, but let's try the other one. We'll just... Maybe what'd you do with this? Merely carrying out the engineer's instructions. In his words, wait, is this different? Fabricate some evidence. Nope, I can't fast forward this one. Okay. So you went without any of your team to where harassment had fallen. We're so close. Wait, was that a new one? Oh no. Okay, so yeah, this is this here. Screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the chest. So we're gonna try again the other one. Real cause of death being the fall, of course. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, that's what we want. What should I ask her to do with this statement she just added? Change it, please. Dr. Scythe, what you said before about what you did to the victim's body, I believe that may be significant, so could you change your supplementary statement to explain that instead? Very well. Thank you for being nice and not saying, no, but... Stow over the victim's corpse where it lay in the top of the cage and plunge a screwdriver into the chest. Okay, I'm going to double check the save. It's the reason I'm not reloading is because I'm legitimately like, do I save? Have I been saving?
Hold it!
So it was you who stabbed Aspen with this? Yes, far easier than dissection, I assure you. No precision required. What a welcome change. The victim died instantly from a snapped neck. All I did was carry out the instructions I'd been given, as unflinchingly as ever, no doubt. I imagine you didn't bat an eye when you drove the weapon into his body. There was no need to bat my eyelids. And what else did you do to twist the facts? Remind the court, don't you? Why don't you? If you wish. Oh, there is no evidence being pushed on that. Okay, no, it is definitely the other one. It is 100% the other one. Like, you can tell just from the way they were talking that that's the thing that people are like, hey, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Okay. Right? Oh, wait. It was this one. Right? Okay, let's see here. Was it this one? Okay, so yeah, this one we do to flip it over. Alright, we do this. I'm just trying to think about the broken neck or whatever. Have her change it. Yep. We said before about the real cause of death. That may be significant because you change your supplementary statement to explain that instead. Okay, let's just see. What could it be? Yeah, this one is the one that it's gonna be. I just don't. So the cause of death was, she says it's the neck, right? Hemorrhage from a wound that pierced the heart, resulting from a high impact. Is it this?
Objection!
No. Okay. The defense is wrong. Okay. Sent. Crossbow? No. Is there like blood on something else that I just don't remember? This? Found this about the waxwork. Royal Society, autopsy of the professor. Enoch Drebber's photograph. Post-explosion. That has nothing to do with it right now. Contract. Crystal Tower. Beam shows a stab wound to the chest, yeah. Autopsy screwdriver has a very distinct handle. We did this one, so it can't be this one. The balloon moments before it was shot. Right, so then he fell and... Isn't this to show that he fell in a way that... How could his neck break if he fell foot first?
Objection!
No. That's not it. I'm trying to... Because, again, I'm kind of leaping in logic. The actual cause of death was the neck trauma he suffered from the 30-foot fall. Didn't mean to click that again. You're sure of it? Yes. Professional, you never know. It's not very true. Obviously not. Okay, yes. Assuming they're correct. No point call. Yeah, so this is the one. This is the one. Right? Literally, he's saying, yeah, you need to do it on this body. Right? Unless we need to use... Body had to be arranged. The actual body was indicated, was beneath the experimentation stage. Right? So then this is post-movement. Yes, this is after they moved the body. Okay? 30-foot drop. Yeah. Right? Crystal tower. I don't think there's anything with this. Crossbow shot. Bird cage. Damage to the base. Right? We tried that one, I'm pretty sure. Give me a moment. I'm gonna figure this out.
Objection.
Oh my god, there it is. I've been trying all of them. I tried all of them on the last one. And then I switched it over because I'm like, okay, it must be the other one. And I finally got it. Okay, my thinking was very wrong. Thanks. Thanks for saying you should present evidence. Okay, that's on me, I guess, for following his instructions. Anyways, I've got a nasty feeling that this inconsistency points to an extremely uncomfortable truth.
What on earth is the matter, Counsel?
I don't know. Have you lost your tongue? Almost. I've been doing this for a while now. I apologize, my lord. Dr. Sithe, in that last statement of yours, there's just one point that seems to defy explanation. Out with it, my learned friend. There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph. Also, what's this remix? What's the inconsistency? What are we doing? What are we doing? Which shows the victim in the birdcage following the events that led to his death. Okay. Wait. Wait. The blood's dripping down. Gravity. It's dripping down. Oh my god. The court has already examined this photograph in detail. There's nothing new we can learn from it. I didn't get that from that. Yes, we've already considered it, that's true. But now we know the facts to be different. What do you mean?
I believe we should let the defense explain. Where in this photograph would we see the alleged inconsistency with the statement?
It's the blood dripping down. Look closely at the blood stain on the victim's chest. It clearly extends in a downwards direction towards the man's feet.
And why is that significant, Counsel?
The victim was stabbed moments before the kinesis machine was set in motion. That's entirely expected.
Of course, no, that's not what happened.
Exactly, my lord. Dr. Sithe made it very clear in her testimony just now. The point at which she stole Professor Harebrain's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion, when the birdcage had fallen below the stage out of sight. From the shape of it, it's clear the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-foot drop, after the victim had really been stabbed whilst inside the birdcage in that position. The blood from the wound would have spread out equally in all directions. For it to have formed the longitudinal appearance we see in this picture is conceivable. Given that the victim's blood seeped vertically downwards from the wound, it must be the case that when you stabbed Mr. Assman, he was standing up. In short, Dr. Sithe, your latest testimony was a total fabrication. I knew it. I was right. Now I've identified that contradiction. There's only one way to explain the facts. We've all been under a great misapprehension here. What? What sort of misapprehension? Dr. Sithe, you claim you were coerced into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant, and you claim you authored a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. But one of those claims is an out-and-out lie, because the question of what the bloodstain really tells us has only one possible answer. If that is the case, what is it, man? He's not calling me his friend anymore.
Counselor, you've clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell the court what it is. Which part of Dr. Sithe's story is shown to be a lie by the contradiction in your testimony?
Let me see if I get this right. I'm at the point where now I'm kind of like, I thought I had it. It was the stabbing, right? The stabbing happened before. The answer is very simple if you consider the sequence of events. If when the victim was stabbed, the blood from the wound seeped downwards as it did, we can be sure that the victim must have either been sitting or standing upright at the time. But as you rightly pointed out, the birdcage would have fallen on its side when it fell beneath the stage. Yes, it would. Which tells us the victim must have been in that position of his own accord. That's impossible. The man was dead, remember? No. That is the misapprehension. When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it must have hit the ground with considerable force. Mr. Assman didn't die in the fall. He probably lost consciousness for a while. When he came around, he got to his feet to climb out of the cage. And just as Dr. Sithe appeared, if the victim was in fact alive at that point in time, it changes everything. Damn. Bro didn't press shield or anything. Mr. Odiasman's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Harebrain, nor was it the mastermind behind the stage trickery, Mr. Enoch Drebber. It was you, Dr. Courtney Sithe. I'm not doing more feminine yells. They sound very awkward.
Order, order, order! Can this possibly be true?
Have you been taking me for a fool? It was you, was it? You killed him? You hoped that by admitting to being an accomplice in Mr. Drebber's scheme, the trial would end, before you were accused of a far worse crime. Cold-blooded murder. Oh, do shut up. You're so desperate now, you're making this all up. As if I would do something like that. I assure you, I didn't even realize it was Susie saying that. I assure you that the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Naruhodo has established the facts using evidence and logic alone. Logic. Don't make me laugh. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it. What? What do you mean? I thought it'd be obvious. A motive, boy. You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Assman? Mr. Assman was involved in any number of criminal activities, from coercion to theft to murder. But there is no known connection to Dr. Sithe there.
I'm rather relieved to say it does seem somewhat far-fetched.
True, there's no obvious motive, but there's still something in the back of my mind. I feel sure I've seen something somewhere that hints at why the coroner might have done this. Do I remember? Probably from a room. I don't remember. Yes, I might have tampered with this crime scene and concocted a fake report. But murdering someone for no reason is a very different story. No. When you question what possible reason you could have for have for wanting to kill Mr. Assman, something did come to mind. What?
What was it, Counselor? Enlighten the court at once.
Yes, we saw it yesterday, didn't we?
Did we?
Something that seemed strange, but we had no reason to suspect it at the time. There's a particular object that explains why Dr. Scythe would have wanted to kill Mr. Assman. The mask? The scalpels? The screwdriver? Okay, not the screwdriver. What does the mask have to do anything with it? I'm noticing there's no loss here, so it might be fine. Hey, what? Yeah, there's no thing. What's the mask have to do with it? It's the iron mask. You've lost me. Huh? Sorry. Okay, that's not that one, but why would the iron mask? Well, of all the things I saw yesterday, it left the greatest impression, so... Clearly you have no idea what you're talking about. I think I must have said the wrong thing. Forgive the interruption, Dr. Scythe, but what my colleague meant to say was scalpels. Okay, good. Okay, you're just skipping ahead. Perhaps that makes a little more sense to you? Oh, of course.
Did you say scalpels?
Wait, was it the billions of scalpels or something? It would appear that word has struck a chord, Doctor. You... Come on, out with it. It was yesterday when we visited your laboratory. Look at this big, thick book here. It appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team's spending, I think. Oh. What is it? It's clear that the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but, well, one entry seems rather strange. Really? In what way? They're buying 500 scalpels every month. I thought that was just a funny non sequitur.
500 scalpels? 500 more scalpels a month?
At first, I wondered what on earth you could be using that many scalpels for. But actually, I realize now it's not the scalpels themselves that are significant, it's the money for them disappearing every month from the department's accounts. Assman's criminal organization relied heavily on extortion for its funding, tracing the money from the forensic investigation team's account to find out where it was going would be extremely straightforward. 10 years ago, when Mr. Assman was still a journalist and wrote this article about Mr. Drebber, he may have stumbled upon information as he was researching the story. Information relating to Dr. Scythe's darkest secret that he would use to rack money from her for the next decade. Oh!
Her darkest secret, good lord, you mean?
I don't know what happened on the night of that execution 10 years ago, but clearly the opportunity to rid yourself of that menace was too tempting to pass up. So in the end, you weren't coerced at all, were you? You did it entirely of your own free will. You stabbed Mr. Assman in the heart with all your might, to silence the blackmailer who knew your dark secret forever. You'll never understand. None of you. What we've had to keep covered up all these long years. Wow, 3 white fades in a single trial. That's crazy. I'm shocked he's getting off, as very little of the machine remains after it was ripped apart by the bomb. The truth of this case can never be properly established unless you speak out. And if you decide not to, it's very possible that Courtney Scythe will escape punishment for her crimes. Please, sir, own up to what you've done, and tell the court the truth about what happened. 10 years ago, you told the truth, and you were robbed of a bright and successful future as a result. I can certainly understand your bitterness and your consternation now. However, this is surely the chance you've been waiting for. To sever the hold that fate's had over you for all these years. That's never gonna happen to me. Nope, that hold's staying. Super high voltage, instantaneous kinesis. I mean, really. It's the addle-brained mock scientists that are the worst, you know. They don't recognize the fact that they don't have talent. They can't even get that right. And so they end up chasing impossible dreams, having unbridled faith in their abilities. They go on and on about their wonderful hypotheses, their stupid eyes shining like a little child's. They make me sick. I can't abide their foolishness.
Careful, Mr. Drebber.
I was particularly pleased with the kinesis machine. It made for quite a show, didn't it? So you admit it? You admit that it was nothing more than a sham made for the purpose of killing the victim? Yes, I admit it. I did it all in the name of revenge. Revenge for the future that Mr. Aspen's article had deprived you of 10 years earlier. But the revenge you sought didn't stop at Aspen, didn't? Which is where that very particular waxwork comes in. Yes, I see. This was a crazy plan from him, honestly. The condemned convict you saw rising from the grave in Lowgate Cemetery 10 years ago. If your account of those events was all true, then obviously Scotland Yard couldn't afford to acknowledge what had happened. Even if it meant discrediting a bright young man and crushing any future career he might have had. So your plan required that you abduct that particular waxwork model in order to exact your revenge on Scotland Yard as well, or on Dr. Sithe to be precise. It was a year ago. By some extraordinary twist of fate, Asmin turned up at my workshop. He didn't remember who I was, of course. He just wanted to employ my services as an engineer. And he happened to have a paper with him. An article on the front page caught my eye. About the coroner who'd handled the bogus autopsy, being appointed head of a new forensic team. When I learned that news, my cognitive processes started to devise the plan. What a horrid tale. He robbed me of my future, so I wanted to use the man's own wiles against him for revenge, and have that rotten Scotland Yard eating out of my hand at the same time. I wanted them all to suffer the same humiliation I'd had to suffer. Your actions against those who'd ruined your future were justified as revenge, at least to yourself. Certainly, no one has the right to destroy another's prospects, especially for purely selfish gain. And yet, in carrying out your plan, you did exactly that to someone else, didn't you? Did I? Professor Harebrain's only crime was passion for his hypothesis, but you had no compunction about sacrificing his future to effect your revenge. You knew that he'd be forever branded a failure and a fraud. Perhaps life treated you unfairly 10 years ago, and others' misconduct left your life in tatters. But remember this. Your own actions resulted in exactly the same thing for another perfectly innocent young man. Oh man. Damn, is this the first time we've, humbled someone in court like this? I can't even think of another time when you just, You just bring them down to Earth and you're like, oh my god.
Lord Van Zeeks, what of Dr. Scythe?
An immediate warrant for her arrest has been granted, and she's been remanded in custody, my lord. I presume she will face trial in the coming days, along with Mr. Drebber. Please don't make me do that case. Please, let's move on. We can move on from that case for now.
Most regrettable situation indeed. She's made great contributions to her profession over the years. Really is a hard truth to swallow. However, that is a topic for some future occasion. For now, Professor Hairbrain.
Oh, yes.
Seems there's a great deal more to your experiment than you realized. However, I think we can assume now that all the sordid details have been brought to light. This has been a very long and profound trial, but I'm pleased to say you are absolved of all guilt.
This whole experience has taught me a very great but painful lesson. I've been, me, this dedicated scientist, this devotee of natural philosophy. I've been selfish and self-centered and, above all, a fool. Professor, I've spent my life thinking of nothing but my research, misguidedly believing that I could do whatever I set my mind to despite my lack of talent. And the worst of it is, in the process, I've caused others pain and misery. Others who are far, far greater people than I. No, Professor, it's not true. What? Don't tar yourself with the same brush as Drebber. What happened was his doing and his alone. This outcome is his fate, not yours. You're not to blame in any way. Lord Van Zeeks. And the derision with which he referred to you earlier, calling you a fool, talentless even. The man has no idea. To believe in yourself and work your fingers to the bone to realize your dreams. That's laudable, not laughable. No one has the right to deride another for such choices. Oh. Thank you, Baroque.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
It's just, guilty, guilty, guilty. It's like, wait, what? Hold up.
yes, my lord. It is this court's expectation you find the defendant not guilty of the charge of which he stands accused. I presume there are no objections. None from me, my lord.
Certainly not.
This trial has really made me think, but this is the right decision.
It's all been proven methodically and rigorously. I have no misgivings whatsoever.
What's this? He's done, is he? It's all over?
I don't know what's become of the yard these days. I don't recognize the place.
Okay, that's not an answer to the question.
Very well. In that case, I hereby pronounce the defendant not guilty.
This, I will say, I liked 90% of this trial. I found the last bit when I got stuck there. That was the point where I didn't like it as much. I thought it got a bit worse. I think it got muddled a bit at the end there, but still good.
Court is adjourned.
Still a good case. Yeah, memorable for sure. It's over. That was some trial. How long did it take? 4:33. Yeah, that did take 4 hours in there, huh? Or something. I didn't look at the time. Professor! What a splendid outcome, isn't it? Oh, it is. Congratulations, Professor Hairbrain. Mr. Naruhodo, Miss Susato, I am truly beside myself with gratitude. How could I ever thank you enough? I'm just glad it's been all cleared up, that you realized you were just caught up in a bad situation. Right now, you know, if I had the research grant money, I'd give the whole lot to you, every penny. Well, that's very kind of you, but I'm just a student, so... We don't need any financial reward. Your acquittal is more than enough.
Oh dear. Oh, what can I do? Aha! How about this? As a memento, it's a paper, but my hypothesis is inside.
Well, just as a memento then. Thank you. It's a tiny book for babies. I've been wondering, Professor, what are you going to do now?
Oh my. Yes. What am I going to do? My hypothesis and my great machine lie in ruins. But still, it's been too long since I was last in London, so perhaps I'll enjoy some sightseeing. I must explore the great exhibition whilst I'm still here too, and see if new inspiration hits me.
Oh yes, that's a wonderful idea. I can't allow that. Who's this? Oh.
Lord Van Zeeks, what are you doing in here? Baroque.
I'm sorry you had to go through that, Albert.
Well, if I'm honest, it was terrifying. You were like a great demon behind your bench there, snarling down on your prey.
You're one of the few true friends I have. I couldn't leave it to anybody else to handle the prosecution or the defense.
Sorry? Or the defense? Did I just hear that right? I always knew that you had my best interests at heart, don't worry. How about I show you around? How about you show me around while I'm here in town? It's been a long time since we left university. We have a lot to catch up on.
Listen, Albert. In a few days, your acquittal will be made official. When that happens, you must head straight to Dover. I'll accompany you. But isn't that where the Dover boys are? Isn't that where Dan Backside is?
What?
From there, you'll cross the channel and make your way to Germany. I've already purchased the tickets.
But no, hold on a minute, Baroque. What about the great exhibitions? This is the chance of a lifetime for me. I want to look around.
No. No sightseeing, Albert. Give up on the idea.
Sometimes it's hard to see any warmth in those eyes, Baroque.
Lord Van Zeeks, what's all this about? Unnecessary precaution. Yes, I think I understand. You do? Well, Iris told me that when you meet Lord Van Zeeks at his office when you met him some days ago, he asked how Mr. Natsume was doing. Yes, that's right. I remember being surprised at the time and thinking it was nice of him to ask. The point is, Mr. Natsume is still alive and well, even though it's been more than 6 months now that he stood trial with the Reaper as the prosecutor. You mean the Reaper's influence doesn't stretch overseas? Those in the Reaper's sights meet their ends days or sometimes months after their acquittal. That's been the pattern up till now. But of course, we know that both Mr. Natsume and Gina were completely innocent. True. And perhaps that governs the Reaper's actions. The truly innocent are spared. I don't want to take any chances with a close personal friend. Gina can die, I don't care. But Baroque. Like the mustached Nipponese, this man should leave the country without delay. That's why I'm packing him off to Germany at once. Right. Does your friend-shaped package get any say in it? I don't like that. That has undertones, that sentence. Goodness, was this your intention all along then, Lord Van Zeeks? In court, where people think of him as the Reaper, this man seems absolutely merciless, and yet sometimes I feel as though I don't understand him at all. It's time to go, Albert. Back to the prison for the time being.
Ah, yes, all right. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, thank you so much for everything.
Not all, Professor. It was a pleasure getting to know you. Best wishes, Professor Hairbrain.
Well, once the dust is settled, You must come visit me in Germany.
I don't think we can do that if we have a student passport to be in Britain, but okay. Anyway, goodbye for now. I'm gonna be honest, I'll happily never see that guy again. Now, my Nipponese friend. Oh, yes? Thought you'd gone too. We have matters to discuss. Can you spare me some time? Wait, we actually have stuff? You want to talk with me? This is so long. I'll be waiting in the courtroom in 10 minutes. Okay. Well, that was strange. For some reason, I didn't get that sense of impending doom as he walked away this time. Enigma, Baruch Van Zeeks. What does he want to discuss, I wonder? The answer awaits in the courtroom, I suppose. Here goes, then. Are we gonna come in and someone's already dead or something? Last time we did this, there was a fire, and that was bad. What's gonna happen this time? Well, we're back here, okay. So, are you satisfied? You saved a guileless scientist from a great injustice. Yes, I think so. I'm relieved, at least, that the man's innocence could be proven. Anyway, I imagine you've been wondering where my animosity towards you Nipponese comes from. I would assume society, xenophobia, IGN. Well, at first I thought you just didn't like me. I imagine you saw me as a pretentious child from an unimportant land who had no business being here. But now I think differently. You clearly know our ways. So I would guess that some specific incident led to your thorough dislike of my race. That's a crazy thing to read. Will you tell me what happened, please? The professor.
Was James Moriarty Japanese?
I thought I'd never hear that name in this courtroom again, to be honest. He took your brother's life. Clint. My brother was Clint Van Zeeks. 16 years ago, when I was still just in my teens, he was already the director of prosecutions and a key member of the judiciary. I looked up to him. He was everything I aspired to be. He was involved in the establishment of justice systems in foreign countries as well. There were exchange programs between Britain and other nations then, too, to share knowledge and ideas. As part of one of those programs, 3 judicial students came to Britain from your homeland, the Empire of Japan. Oh, if it was 16 years ago, then one of them could have been my father. Of course, I remember Dr. Mikotoba well. I had no idea. I was a minor at the time, training at the prosecutor's office. One day, Clint introduced me to 3 visiting Nipponese. So you've actually met my father. He and his colleagues were polite and amicable. They were adept at their work and exacting in their standards. It was my first encounter with the Nipponese spirit, and it made a very great impression upon me. But 6 years later, that's when it happened. The investigation was going nowhere. There were no suspects even, just an ever-growing list of victims. And in the end, my brother became one of them. The last, in fact, before the case was finally resolved. I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zeeks. Truly. Clint was always ready to put his life on the line for justice anyway. Though he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He lost his life to the killer, but it was his victory in the end. For me personally, though, it was a great loss. I found myself in a very dark place indeed. So I went to this website called 4chan. When I finally found out the killer's identity, the reason why no one had been able to catch the man sooner ceased to be such a mystery. He'd been hiding in plain sight all the time. In plain sight? Are you aware of political events 10 years ago? Oh boy. It was a period of extremely sensitive diplomacy between the British and Japanese empires. A new treaty was being forged, I think? Correct. The Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation was being concluded. The leaders of both countries were deep in extensive political discussions, which is why this particular killer's appearance in court was conducted as a closed trial. Oh my god, he was Japanese. If the British public had known the identity of the killer, not only would the treaty have been in jeopardy, but our two nations could very well have ended up at war. What? War between Britain and Japan? But that would mean... Oh my, you mean to say the professor was... Moriarty-kun.
When the trial reached its conclusion earlier, I thought to myself, yes, it's time.
Oh my god, voice
Time
acting.
for you to come face to face with this hideous monster.
What if it's Professor Mikotoba?
I borrowed the key for the mask from the proprietress of the Waxwork Museum. So see for yourselves now. Confirm it with your own eyes. The truth that's been hidden this past decade.
Oh my god.
That's the professor?
Yes, that's him.
Until now, the thought never even crossed my mind. That the mass murderer, whose crimes shook Britain as never before, was Japanese.
Okay, that line reads kind of really funny.
That face. I
Oh my
feel as
God.
though I've seen it somewhere. It's strangely familiar.
What are we doing? Is that going to be like Kazuma's dad or something? Wait. Is that him? That's him.
Father.
Oh. Okay, 1, you look like Crow Persona 5. 2, called it.
What? Father? Kazuma! My best friend, Kazuma Asogi. After a whole year, finally his memories returned.
That outfit change is wild.
As he stood there before me,
He's kind of ripped.
Ryunosuke.
Why are you wearing those clothes?
Hello,
Aww.
my friend.
Aww.
Kazuma-sama!
Can I be honest? Bro, you have a forehead that looks like it needs that headband back. You look so much lamer without the headband. I want you to realize this.
It's been a very long road. Thank you. Thank you for guiding my friend here when I could not.
It was an honor.
This is so much better than the anime cutscenes, I'm gonna be honest. I much prefer these voice acted scenes to the anime ones.
I knew you wouldn't die that easily. Kazuma.
I owe you thanks, too, for taking good care of that in my absence.
Oh. Karuma.
Oh,
Great
that's the
blade of
headband
the
there
Asogi
too,
clan,
right?
Passed down
Is
through
it?
the
I think it is.
generations.
Didn't even realize that.
When we left Japan, this sword was at my friend's side. A Japanese man's katana is his soul. He couldn't be parted from it. But then, when the incident happened,
So, yeah, we need more info on this.
it was Susato-san's wish that I inherit the sword, and I've kept it with me ever since, along with my memories of the friendship we shared. With this by my side, I always felt that you were watching over me somehow.
Returning his soul to him.
I've made it. At last. Father.
Was his whole goal to come to Japan to continue his father's
you saying-
legacy?
Surely not. You mean, you knew all this time?
That's wild.
I'm looking at it, but I still can't believe it. This mass murderer is Kazuma's father.
Yo. That's crazy because I've seen these models. They're solid on the inside in at Madame Tussauds. That's wild.
Kazuma-sama.
Ryunosuke, we have much to talk about. But now is not the time.
He has two swords now.
I'll be seeing you.
Can I be real? Him with these two swords in this outfit, he looks like a Tales of character. He looks straight out of a Tales of game.
That's all Kazuma said. Before he turned and left us there, in the courtroom.
What if the next case starts and he immediately dies? Could you imagine? Oh, hi, right? I forgot. Okay. So, he's the living after image of the man who took my brother's life, is he? Oh, yeah, you're probably not happy about that now. Yes, Kazuma Asogi, my best friend. 3 months ago when Lord Strongheart introduced us, I had an inkling there was something there. Some connection. Why did Lord Strongheart do that? Why did he make Kazuma Lord Van Zeek's apprentice? And when he was suffering amnesia, too. The man was apprehended, then executed. But his legacy just won't die. That's the sad truth. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you for meeting with me as I asked. He just disappeared. How did he do that? What the frick? 10 years ago, my grandmother took me to the railway station. We were there to meet my father from the train. For me, it was the first time I'd ever seen him. Poor Sasato-san, all this tied up with painful memories for her too. She's never talked about this with me before, though. Took some time to adjust to having father around. But just when I was starting to get used to it, he called me into his study one day. He told me that a great friend of his had passed away in London, and that the friend had left behind a son, a boy 7 years my senior. Father told me the boy had made a promise to his late father, so he was studying to become a defense lawyer. wanted to help, so I studied to become a qualified judicial assistant. As I'm sure you've worked out, that young man's name was Kazuma Asogi. So you see, that's how he and I met.
For a brief moment, my great friend had returned, only to disappear again all too soon. But in that fleeting encounter, something stirred. Something that had been dormant for a long time, as if great wheels had been set in motion. I could almost hear them creaking into life. In some ways, it was the end of a chapter, but in many, it was the start of a new one.
That was a crazy case ending. That was a crazy ending to the case with all those revelations. That I would say that yeah, that was an extremely memorable sort of conclusion to it. I already liked it. Chris Twisted Karma and his last bow. It was indeed a most bizarre incident born of a curious advertisement, commonplace killing at the edge of town. Commonplace killing. Huh. One thing I do want to do, just real quick, is I think from going forward for these last couple chapters, we're going to turn off those costumes. We've used them. We've seen them. They were fun. It's getting serious. Let's go back to our regular costumes. Right? Nope. Shomes, you two. Right? I think it just makes sense. All annotations appear in their original form. I didn't even see that there before. We're not going to go to that, obviously. Okay, next time, case 4 of this one here. So we'll see. Is this going to be a long case 4, short case 4? I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm real curious. I enjoyed that, even if at the end it did get a little long in the tooth, but that's all good. We'll see you guys for some more next time. Ciao.
Yo.